When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you all. It is episode 82 of Join Up Dots. It's the 19th of July. Can you believe it? We're whizzing through the year, and hopefully you're not whizzing past the dreams. As the theme tune said at the beginning of the show, this show is about people who went after their dreams and went after their dreams a big time. And today's guest, quite simply, should have the words "dream big" and then "dream bigger" tattooed all over their body. A self-confessed exponent of the Richard Branson method, screw it, let's do it. He has, over the last few years, created a life that is exciting, inspirational, and more than a bit amazing in the kind of, well, how the hell did he manage to do that kind of way? From making Hollywood movies, to building companies, to working with David Blaine, to being stung by a jellyfish, which turned out to be a great thing actually, to even meeting the main man, Mr Branson himself. He has challenged himself to think big, think bigger, and confront those self-limiting thoughts. But how did he start on his road to self-creation? Was he the kind of kid that was always going against the norm at school and in life? Or was he someone who landed firmly on the big dot that showed him the path to a life that is uniquely his? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots, the one and only Mr. Eric James. How are you today, Eric?
I'm doing great, man. Having a good day, and thank you for having me on the show. This is a great opportunity. I'm actually living a little bit of a dream today. Went flying in a new airplane this morning, and then just now saw Amelia Earhart, who is doing a round-the-world flight.
I thought she was
just
dead.
Like the one. Well, it's a new Amelia Earhart, and apparently she might be a descendant of the original, but she's named after the original Amelia Earhart, and she's redoing her flight, and so she's doing a flight around the world, and just got to meet her and see that happen. So that was something that just was happening 10 minutes ago, which was a surprise to me. So that was really awesome. Having a great day.
Well, your life is a bit like that, isn't it? You know, I've been doing some online stalking, and I've been researching. People call it researching. I call it stalking. And every page I was turning, I was thinking, blimey, how's he done this? And how's that happen? And it does seem to be that your life is half kind of you have done things deliberately, and half, wow, that's just kind of falling into your lap. Is that an outsider's point of view, or do you feel that yourself?
I feel that way as well, definitely. And I think if there's any component to that, it's that whatever comes into my life, I'm, really grateful for and fully accept. So I feel like life keeps giving me gifts because I'm a good receiver of those gifts.
Have you always been like that? When you was a little kid, a little 5-year-old Eric James running around with scabs on your knees and stuff, was sort of amazing things happening to you then? Or is it only since you've got into adulthood and really started creating your own path that these kind of things have occurred?
When I was a little kid, I was definitely excited about everything. So that helps. That helps being, appreciative of what's happening, just being generally excited. But it was definitely into adulthood when I was 18, 19, around that age, where I really started to make some different choices and try things out and see kind of what life could be like if I really demanded the most out of it. So I'm still working on that one. So I guess to answer your question, when I was a little kid, it was just serendipitous, and I didn't really think about it. But now as an adult, I really notice. So it could have been happening the whole time, but now I definitely am more appreciative of it.
I bet it was happening all the time, because the fact that you were 18 or 19 already making decisions on your path, where the majority of us kind of went through college, university, got a job, because that was what was expected of us. But you were kind of shaking up the status quo even at that age, where probably all your mates and all your peer pressure were doing the route that I did and everybody else did. Why did you create your own path at that age? Was it something that was just inherently in you, or did you see somebody else doing it and you thought, that's what I want to do?
I went to film school, actually, and again, it was like I never thought I would get a job making movies. It was just something that I enjoyed. And out of film school, ended up living out of my dad's basement and for a summer, and ended up getting kind of kicked out of his basement. And I did not know what to do with myself, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was having like panic attacks. So I'd go to a job interview for like Blockbuster Video or whatever, and I'd be like sweating bullets and freaking out. And they'd be like, well, obviously we can't hire you because you're not going to be able to, you can't make it through the interview. How are you going to help customers and stuff? So I was really at a low spot. But what's great about that is it forced me to be resourceful. So pretty much I dug deep down and I was like, okay, what resources do I have? I went to film school, so I know how to make movies. I have a camera and a computer. And I also have my creativity. And one of the things that I loved as a kid was magic. So I started making magic tricks and putting the videos online. And very shortly after, that turned into my first business because people started asking to buy the tricks. So I was just putting them up there to see if people could figure them out, and people wanted to buy it. So I was like, oh man, I need to pay rent. This could be it. So
did it surprise you though when that happened? Was it kind
absolutely
of what, like, because a lot of people have been saying to me when they do something naturally easy for them, they're almost shocked that people want to buy it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I was more doing it as something to do, just something to distract my mind with, some kind of project to make progress on. Because I was not doing so hot otherwise. But then when people started contacting me wanting to buy, it was very surprising. But I knew enough to see the opportunity. Another thing, I guess, if I rewind a little bit, in high school, like both of my parents were very successful in their own careers, but not financially. So my mom is an artist and she got a lot of awards and this and that. And my dad is an engineer and designed some really important things. Like he worked on night vision goggles and some really cool stuff. But financially, we were never super well off. And so that was always a question mark in my head. Like, what's the missing link there? Like my neighbor who was a construction worker, they moved into like the rich neighborhood. Yeah. Little did I know he owned a construction company. He had started a construction company. So when I was in high school, that was like a interesting question that I was always looking for answers for. So I read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad had a big effect on me. And then also I got to take part in a stock market game where you got to trade stocks against all the other schools in the country. And my team actually ended up winning the whole country. And so that gave me this like interest, even a greater interest in finance and money and business. So when I had the opportunity to come up with the magic tricks, I was kind of primed, It was like I didn't know it at the time. Talk about joining up the dots, but reading those books and asking those questions had me ready to jump on the opportunity when it showed itself.
It is brilliant, isn't it? I started this show just because it was something that I was interested in, and it amazes me every single episode how we are able to join up our dots, and the things that we just couldn't perceive were going to be part of our big master plan seems to be, I don't know, using a sort of hokey term, but the universe was working without us knowing what's happening, and then suddenly, for whatever reason, it starts to bring all these dots together, and you kind of go, this is it, this is the passion. And it strikes me as amazing that every single person that I speak to says the same thing, and it happened to me as well. You just can't understand how all these little things can become something so valuable.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And, all the successful people I know, in whatever way you define that, have a similar story. But I think the key thing is a willingness to accept that as you move forward and say, oh, I'm supposed to learn this. Like life keeps putting this in front of me. I'm probably supposed to learn this. I don't know why. But, once you have it happen enough, you're like, well, I'll learn this and I'll really dive into this because I'm going to need it for the universe's master plan or whatever, as you put it.
What do you think about people that say, when you find your passion, just find your inner passion and then you're set for life? Because I've started to realise that although I know exactly what they're saying, for somebody out there who can't quite find that passion, you basically want to punch that person in the face, because it's just not coming to you until it comes to you. Is there any way you think that for a listener out there who's sitting on the bus or they're on the train, they're going to a job that they don't like, hearing us all say, find your passion and your unique path, but they just can't see how to start it? Is there a way that you would suggest that actually you can start it by doing something?
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say that that's kind of the wrong phrasing, like find your passion. And instead, it's like decide what you want. So get clear about your outcome in the areas of your life. So, for me, that might be like, what do I want my body to look and feel like? What do I want my finances to look and feel like? What kind of freedoms do I want to have? What do I want my relationship to look like? What basically, like, fast forward, if I envision my, best self in 20 years, like, where am I living? What am I spending my time on? Who am I spending that time with? And really letting yourself dream like a kid at Christmas, like making a Christmas list. There's no limit here. You can order up whatever you want from the universe or from life or whatever you believe. And so instead of, I guess, trying to find your passion, it's like if you connect to who you want to be, that's arising from within. There's a reason you want to be that person. And then that can help, once you have a goal in mind, you know where you are right now, you can develop a map, a route to get from where you are to where you want to be, and down to what you need to do right now to take that first step. So for me, that's been a bigger component than any single passion.
Have you always known that, or has somebody sat you down and said, Eric, you're shooting off all over the place and you're just having these wild opportunities. If you structured, then they're going to be even better?
Not exactly, but that lesson was first came to me, and it was interesting. Again, joining up the dots. I love the whole premise is wonderful. It's bringing up a lot of memories for me. When I was in that real tough time, when I kind of got kicked out of my dad's basement and couldn't get a job, all this stuff, I went and visited my sister in Oregon, and her roommate at the time liked to smoke marijuana, and he would have this way that he would roll joints and get in this like real thoughtful mode and talk about existence and spirituality and all these different things. And I really just dug that. I don't smoke or anything, but I just loved hanging out with him while he did that, because it was just this very methodical thing that he would do. And then one day when I was visiting her, he was rolling up a joint and was like, have you ever heard of the ultimate success formula? And I was like, what? And my ears definitely perked up at that point, because I was in a bad spot. And I was like, I could use some ultimate success formula right now. So he told me about this book that these guys had read the first chapter of the book. And they were so successful after reading the first chapter of the book that they couldn't even finish the rest of the book. So I'm like, what? What is this book? And it turns out it's a book by Tony Robbins. And if anyone's listening who's not familiar, I highly recommend checking out his stuff. I've learned a ton.
Can you remember the name of the book?
He has a couple books out. They're all great. I'm not sure which one he was referring to. Maybe Awaken the Giant Within.
You were too stoned, weren't you, Eric? That's the problem. You say that you weren't smoking, but we don't believe you.
Oh, man. No, I actually don't drink, don't smoke, anything like that. So I know it probably doesn't sound like the truth, but it is. So maybe I was, contact high, and that's why it had such a big impact too. But it was definitely a good lesson. So he proceeded to tell me the ultimate success formula, which basically is, the first step is what I just described, and that's getting clear about your outcome, getting clear about what you want. Which is actually something most people don't ever do. They just focus on all the stuff they don't want and all the stuff that's not working in their life. And if you focus on that, you're going to get more of it. So basically getting clear about what you want instead of what you don't want. And then step 2 of the ultimate success formula is to take massive action. So not a little bit. Like, you don't try one way and then say, oh, that didn't work, I'm not going to do this. You try like a zillion and one ways. You try anything that could possibly help move you towards your goal. So you don't just take action, though, because you get to step 3, which is you got to notice whether it's working. Is this action that I'm taking getting me closer to my goal, closer to the person I want to be? or further away from it, which is easy to answer. And then step 4 is just adjust as necessary. So, when a plane takes off to fly to Hawaii, and Tony talks about this in his book, they just follow the ultimate success formula. So, step 1, they know their outcome. They're flying, say, from Denver to Hawaii. That's what they're going to go do. They know their outcome. So step 2, they take action. They fuel up the plane. They get the engines going. They take off, but they don't just take off and fly, because they might be headed the wrong direction. They have to look at the gauges and say, hey, are we getting closer to Hawaii or further away? And obviously, they keep adjusting. Step 4, adjust as necessary, until they reach Hawaii and land on a dime. The cool part about this is that the airplane's actually off course 99% of the time. And it's just adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. And that's how life is. You're always adjusting, keeping yourself aimed at your destiny, your outcome. And the real X factor with this is role modeling. So given that this point that we live in history, there's been someone that's done almost anything that you could have as a goal. So a lot of people think their goals seem so impossible, except there's maybe thousands of people that have done that already, that can be role models, that already took the steps, that already know how to do it. So in the example, there's already been a lot of planes that have been to Hawaii, and other people that measured the distance to Hawaii. We know how much fuel it takes. We know how much time it takes. We know all kinds of stuff that helps us be able to use the formula to get there consistently. And you can do that in your life as well. So if you want to find out how to make, more money, you need to find those people who have done that. If you want to find people, have a better relationship, you want to find people who have done that so you can learn from them. And so that's what I learned on that day, and it completely changed my life.
I'm going to go out and find my nearest druggie and sit down with him and have deep, meaningful conversations. But it is true. It's absolutely true what you're saying. I've on my website, you can go and download the 8 Guides to Success. And I've been having the same conversations more and more and more. And I've grouped what I've classed as the eight key areas. And one of the first ones is really know what you want. And once you know what you want, then become aware and start looking around and see what other people are doing. Exactly as you said, because there are people out there that have already done it. And that just proves that it's doable, first of all. But don't be frightened. And this is out to the listeners out there. If you've got something in your head that you fancy doing and you look around and other people are doing it as well, don't think to yourself, oh, it's not going to work because they're already doing it. Think of the world. It is so big. There's so many people. You only need a very small percentage of that population of the world, and you could become a billionaire. Couldn't you, Mr. James?
Absolutely. Yep. And, one of the things I want to hit on, too, that I got stuck on is you don't have to be perfect about what you want either. Just decide something and start heading towards it. You can always change it later. It's not like you have to have the master plan and you could never change it. So, just pick something and like you said, there's no reason to be afraid. The fact that you have that desire means that it's possible. I absolutely believe that. Otherwise, the desire wouldn't exist in the first place.
Absolutely. Tell us the jellyfish story, because I was reading that on your site or somewhere I read it, and it was one of those kind of stories that I thought, my God, silver lining and all that, because it was a changing point in your mindset, wasn't it? Being stung by a jellyfish.
Yeah. So I was visiting. My mom had moved to St. Thomas down in the Caribbean, and a little tiny hut on the island near this bay, and beautiful spot. And I had never been down there, and I remember when I was in high school, especially, I never thought I would go to Europe. I never thought I would travel to islands. I mean, literally, my thinking was so small. It's almost inconceivable today to think that way. So going down there was a big deal, and I had to take multiple flights to get down there in these little puddle jumpers and everything. We get down there, and then the first morning we go for a swim in the ocean. And the first thing that happens, and I'm already pretty freaked out, pretty much out of my comfort zone, we go swimming and I get stung by a jellyfish, almost first thing. So at that point, I'm freaking out to the amusement of my family members, and just absolutely freaking out. And then I hit some kind of threshold where I was like, this doesn't make sense to freak out, and I'm actually just as safe right now as I've ever been and will ever be it doesn't really matter where I am or what's going on. Like this idea of security is just an illusion, or maybe it's just that I am actually safe and secure all the time. So it shifted it for me, because it was like, it's not a spectrum. It doesn't actually change. So it's like the idea of taking a business risk or a personal risk or traveling to an unknown country or something like that. All of a sudden, all that stuff became possible because I understood that security was just an illusion in the first place. So that was a pretty profound shift. And after that, I had an amazing time and really got to fully experience being there instead of being trapped in like the fear and anxiety of being out of my comfort zone.
I love that story because I find it amazing just listening to you and reading about you that, you are almost like an Indiana Jones character. You're throwing yourself out of airplanes. You're having hugs with Richard Branson. You're walking through jungles. You're just doing these amazing things. And so for people out there that are just going on a 9 to 5, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and they are craving adventure, they're craving a new way of life, are craving new relationships and stuff, to hear you say that you were petrified of even going down to the Caribbean, but now you're doing all these amazing things, there's hope for everyone, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something I've learned like kind of recently, is that, the one of the great designs is that our brain has gray matter, and that it can literally change to any other neural pathway. So meaning, like, no matter what you feel right now, you don't have to feel that way forever. You can change that. It's neuroplasticity. It's pliable. It's like clay. You can form it into whatever shape. So there's no fear that's too big to overcome, even if it feels that way. And I guess I've been proof of that in multiple occasions in my life. But yeah, so that's great. If there's anything you don't like, you can change it. Like literally anything.
You can create your own reality, really, can't you?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a lot more fun that way too.
So really, what we're doing, we're creating our own realities. We can create the life that we want. And it's madness. It's total madness. But we're not all doing that. We're listening to yourself saying you can have fun, you can earn an income, you can do all these kind of things. But at the end of the day, the majority of us, 95% of us, are just surviving. We're just getting a job and we're going so that we can earn enough money to pay the bills. And that's it. But actually, if we did create a different mindset and believe that we can do bigger things, then really everything should work our way. And that's really what the words of Steve Jobs said back in 2005, which we're going to play in a moment, that you got to trust, you got to have faith, and you've got to dream big, and you can have the reality that you want. There's no difference between Eric James, David Ralph, Tom Hanks, whatever. It's just the extra action that they've taken. What do you feel about that little rant, Mr. James?
Yeah, that sounds true. I mean, I think the little caveat I would add to that is, for me, it seems like if I kind of want something, or I take a little bit of action, I get just hit with every possible obstacle. The universe is like, nope, you don't really want this. It's trying to stop me from getting it. But as soon as I fully commit, and it's like, I'm willing to die for this, I will accept nothing else but this. As soon as like you let the universe know that you're serious, it happens way easier than you would expect. And to tie into that, it's also like, I definitely have a belief that the bigger the goal, the easier it is to achieve. So, if you have a medium goal, or, something just to try dip your toe in kind of thing, there's probably a lot of people trying to get that goal. But the bigger the goal, the easier it is to achieve. And that's actually how I met Richard Branson. Was, one of my goals is with my photography, like one of my reasons for being here, one of the things I want to do is communicate that, if we were flying through space as, human beings trying to find utopia and trying to find heaven, and we were flying through the universe and found Earth, we would be like, we got it. Here it is. We nailed it. It's gorgeous. It has everything we need. The climates are incredible. We have all this variety of life. We have waterfalls and dolphins, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It feeds us. It's heaven. It's utopia. And people like forgot that we're already here. We already arrived. We just have to not like ruin it. So with my photography, I want to tell that story. And from a funny, crazy thing that happened. I ended up eating dinner with Buzz Aldrin underneath the Saturn rocket at NASA. And we were having a conversation about how astronauts have that realization when they go to space, when they look back at Earth and they realize, that's it, like we're here. And so I want to try to communicate that and do photography from space. So again, the bigger the goal, the easier it is to achieve. So I wrote down the zillions of action items I could take, which I mentioned earlier. And the very first one I wrote down was to check Richard Branson's Twitter account. So as soon as the plane landed, I was on a plane at the time, I checked his Twitter account just on my phone, and I saw that he was going to be in Miami 2 days later celebrating the 15th anniversary of Virgin Atlantic flying back and forth. So I was like, well, I'm going to book a ticket to Miami. So I spent a couple $100, booked a ticket to Miami with the idea that I would, try to somehow get into that party. And worst case scenario, I would, have a fun trip to Miami and spend a couple $100. So ended up, there was a charity event beforehand that I was able to get into. And so I find myself in the room with like 10 other hustlers, just like me, that like hustled their way in that room somehow. And we're in the study at the Versace mansion with Richard Branson. And we're all looking at each other like, how did you get in here? How did you get in here? It was awesome. And he totally knew. He totally got it. And so he went around and was just like incredibly gracious with us all and was like, how can I help? Tell me your story. What are you here for? And it became abundantly clear to me how he is so successful, because he doesn't discount anyone and he sees everyone for like their best self. And he treated all of us with the most respect. So like, if I didn't think about him highly enough already, that experience was huge for me. So I pitched him on the idea of going to space and shooting these abstract images of space to try to evoke the emotion that I was just talking about and communicate that to people. So he said, that sounds great. Show me your photography after this. So I pulled up my portfolio on my phone and showed him some of the pictures, and he loved them and connected me to his assistant, who connected me to the leadership at Virgin Galactic. And so I've been working with them. Still, nothing is finalized. They haven't been flying yet, but basically I'll get an opportunity to go to space and to take these photographs. And so I had this great opportunity to test this theory of the bigger the goal, the easier it is to achieve. So I asked, Sir Branson, how many other people had asked him that same question? How many people had pitched him the same idea? And he said one. He said one other person asked. So I had a 50-50 chance, and I'd have a harder time getting a job at Taco Bell, So that was like evidence for me that I'll never forget about that principle.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned. I didn't want that story to finish. And it's just true, isn't it? Even though your mind is going, now hang on, I've got to get this straight. The bigger the dream, the easier it is. When you do actually jot it down, it's true, but it must be the way that we're conditioned somehow, that we go with the route that everybody else goes. So if if there is a job available at Taco Bell, that's what I'm going to go for. Everyone else is going to go for it. But of course, then your odds are less. And so you have got more chance to get into space because less people are going to space. But it still is one of those things that you kind of think, really? Really? Is this possible? I love that. I love that. And I'm going to tell you something, actually, because I don't think I've shared it with anyone, but I have a dream for this show that it becomes the biggest show on Earth. And from the very first moment I opened my mouth, that was my dream. And I'm a million miles away from that, but I'm already starting to see things flying towards me, but I kind of think, is it because I'm dreaming big? Is it because I'm releasing a show every day? Am I touching on some kind of emotional aspect that people are responding to? Or is it something bigger? But I don't know. But if you'd asked me, 6 months ago, I would have blagged and said, yes, it's going to be the biggest show ever. Now I'm starting to think, it's got a chance of really going somewhere. And then maybe in 2 years' time, who knows? I could be the first space podcaster. What about that, Mr. James?
I love it. Yeah, we should go up together. That sounds great.
You phone Mr. Branson and pitch on my behalf. I can't afford to go to Miami, but you're in his pocket already.
Sounds good, man. I would love to do the first podcast from space. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to bring on the words of Steve Jobs. We play this round about this time every show, and it really does. You've already confirmed to me that you're going to buy into this, but this is a speech that he made back in 2005, and we play it every day because there's a great relevance to all our lives that you can't really predict what's going to happen until you look back and start joining up the dots. So this is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
Now, normally I would say to the guest, what do you think? Do you believe in those? But I get this feeling that you do believe in them, so I'm going to put it on its other side. Why do you think so many people don't believe in those?
I mean, basically just fear, and the need for certainty and security. Yeah, it's kind of, I guess, this idea of like life begins at the edge of your comfort zone, but to get outside of your comfort zone, you need some kind of faith. You need something there, and it comes down to a choice. And faith is really just a decision, a choice to believe, in spite of not having evidence to believe. So I think a lot of people just don't have practice exercising that decision-making muscle of faith. And so I think that's the reason a lot of people don't do that. And I think Steve did a great job in that speech of, basically implying that that's the only way to live. And I certainly agree with that.
I agree with it now. And I listen to that every day. And today I've listened to it 6 times because I've done 6 interviews today, and every time I listen to it, sometimes I'll be sort of half listening to it because I'll be sort of preparing for the next question I'm going to ask. Other times I really focus in on it, and then sometimes it's like I've never heard it before. I hear something in it that just kind of raises itself from all the other words, and it is so simple, isn't it? It's kind of not a clever speech, but it's brilliantly constructed as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like when he's speaking, it's coming from his bones. It's coming from his DNA. Like, that's what makes those words so powerful, is because he means it, and you can tell. He's not just saying those words. That's the way he lived his life, and that's how he became who he became, just like any of us can. We can become that future self we want to be, but you have to choose to have faith. And it's a decision, and that he made, and look at the result. I mean, it's huge for all of us.
It is. It's so inspiring. It is so inspiring. I'm going to play another one now. I've just started playing these, and this was last couple of weeks ago, and this was Jim Carrey. Did you hear Jim Carrey do a commencement speech to a load of graduates? Did you hear that?
No. I've heard people talking about it, but I haven't listened to it yet.
Well, this is just a snippet. It's about 26 minutes long, and I've taken this and I've started playing it in most of the shows because I think this is brilliant as well. So it needs to be shared with a bigger audience. You listen to this. This is Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
What do you think about that then?
That is awesome. Completely agree. I got goosebumps. That's awesome.
But you don't expect Jim Carrey to come out with that, do you? That's what really struck me. That it's as good as the Steve Jobs words, and it's shorter as well.
I think something that you're hitting on is something I've noticed, which is at a certain level of success, people are saying the same stuff. People really start to get it. So you're not going to find someone that's very successful like Jim Carrey has been and that doesn't understand these things. So, to all the listeners out there, that's the decision. That's the, if you adopt the same beliefs as these successful people, you can live a life that you can only dream about right now.
Where's your life going to go? You've been with David Blaine, you've been with Branson, you're going up into space. My concern about you, Mr. James, and I'll be honest, I'm going to share this with you, is once you go up to space, where's there to go? Surely that's the ultimate.
Not really. So my ultimate goal, what I'm, kind of my ultimate vision I talked about, is actually to tell the story of this magnificent planet and of humanity, and to develop technology and implement it, because we are in such a technological change right now. That's what our lifetimes are going to be about, to use that technology to enable us to live in such a way that we can populate the stars and keep Earth as a national park. And because it's so gorgeous, there's probably nothing like it in the universe. So I would like to further that goal as much as possible in my lifetime.
Do you believe in aliens?
I think there's probably other life out there. Just statistically,
you weren't expecting that question, were you?
No, but yeah, I think there's probably other life forms. I don't know if there are aliens like we think about green men walking around, but I think there's probably, given the abundance of life on Earth, there's probably life somewhere else as well.
Because that's what I think you should aim for, finding new planets never discovered before and taking photographs, making Hollywood films of aliens in their natural habitat.
That sounds pretty good too. Maybe that's a backup plan.
Yeah, we'll absolutely go with that. So, are you married, or are you're with a lady? I've seen the pictures of you with a lady.
Yeah. So just my girlfriend Angela and I have been dating for a couple months now. So nothing too serious just yet. Had a few serious relationships in the past, but nothing has led to marriage just yet. But I would love to have a family someday. So it's probably headed that direction at some point soon. So,
because the lady I've seen is very small, and is that the right woman that I've been looking at, or have I stumbled across some extramarital stuff that shouldn't be shared on a show like this?
No, I think it could be Angela, or it could be Jessica, my ex-girlfriend. So either way, they're both shorter than me. I'm quite tall, so.
Well, you are, because how tall are you? Because my wife is 4'10" and I'm 6'1", and I'm always struck by how silly we look together. And when I saw photos of you standing next to these ladies, I thought, my God, I think he's even taller than me.
Yeah. I'm 6'6", and so yeah, basically, unless someone's taller than me, I have no idea how tall they are.
So you're halfway to space already.
There you go. Maybe that's why it's easier, right? I can just reach up.
He's not spending as much money getting you up there. That's why Branson said yes. He looked at your height and thought, we just need to push him up by his feet, and he's up there.
Exactly.
Well, just before we finish off, I want to send you back in time, sir. And this is the very end of the show, and this is the bit we call the Sermon on the Mic. And this is when you get a chance to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you did have a chance of a one-on-one, what age would you choose? Would it be a 5-year-old? Would it be an 11-year-old? Or would it be a couple of weeks ago? So I'm going to play the tune, and when it fades out, you're up on the mic. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Hey there, 8-year-old Eric. So guess what? I just got back. You wouldn't believe it, from a trip on a time machine. And I came back to tell you that you're capable of unimaginable greatness. And everything that you wanted, it turned out like you wouldn't have known how it was possible, but it worked out. And, I came back to tell you that you enjoyed the ride so much, and you had so many twists and turns and so many struggles and so many successes, and that it was such a good time getting to that vision of what you want for your life, that you decided to come back and do it again. Only the best part is you can't remember. So you get to live it all over again. enjoy it, buddy. Enjoy it. It's a good ride.
I'm going to send you forward as well, Mr. James. So if you were, because your life is, it is a wow. There's all amazing things happening. When you are a 90-year-old and you're laying on your bed, your deathbed, with your 26-year-old wife or whatever, what's the thing that you would look back on and you think, yeah, that was my mark? If you could project forward and you think that's what I'm going to leave on this planet, can you imagine what it might be?
Yeah. Looking back, I see the number of ripples that are caused by just a simple change in belief and really walking the walk, and being so proud of all the things that came from that, as well as actually making things real that had the potential to be real. Looking back at the lives I was able to help, the technologies I was able to create, the adventures that I was able to experience and share with my friends and family, and just in awe of the abundance of the reward of a life well lived, and how that actually feels, being in that rocking chair, knowing that I made the decision to go for it instead of shrinking away from life. And just like wanting to give myself a high five.
Well, I know our listeners are going to give you a high five, so put your hands up now. We're all going to do it together, because you have been an inspiration, Mr. Eric James. And for all the listeners out there, how can they connect and find out more about you?
So you can go to erictothemoon.com. And I'm also looking to build the SEO on that. So I would love if people like my website to link to it as well. So that's the best way to find me. There's a contact form on there too. And I do check all those emails. So if you want to get in touch, I'd love to hear from everybody.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots of your life. It's been absolutely inspirational. Please come back again when you have more dots to join up, and definitely come back again once you've been into space. I'm going to target you when you're up there. To just put up a banner into the rocket ship window saying, join up dots, I haven't forgotten, and then send it down. Because I do believe that, you've got a future which is going to be more and more interesting, more and more fascinating. And I believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts, it's the best way to build our futures. So, Eric James, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was incredible, and I can't wait to chat again. So have a good one, buddy.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.